any means. But I think if you're going into next season with a young starting pitching core, let's say, just Kluber, Salazar, Bauer, you can obviously supplement that. But I like that core of young starters as well as any that I see around, and that we didn't get the kind of productivity that we wanted this year out of specifically, glaringly, conspicuously, Swisher and Kipnis too, and certainly Bourne and some of these guys in this Drupal. We didn't get what we needed to get from them to be competitive. This weekend to me, Jerry, and I got to say, this weekend to me was the weekend when the playoff hopes went away for me. I just don't see it. I don't see this team finishing even close to 20 games over 500, 22 last year. I just don't see them getting there. There's no reason for me to believe after watching 105 games to suggest that in the third of the season that is left that they're going to go 40 and something, or even 38 and 35 and something over the last, 60 some games. I just don't see it happening. I wish I could, but I think this weekend is where my aspirations for 2014 kind of went away. But I agree with you that the core is strong. The number of prospects and the Lindors and Naquins and Fraziers and people like that are coming in the pipeline, it's always about the future, it seems. But we can't mortgage that future for a run this year that seems unlikely to happen.
And I understand. And that's where I said you've got to be careful with what type of trade you make. The reason that I say, hey, the Indians are as much in it this season as anybody else is simply the fact that artificially, for those reasons that I threw out there, that with the schedule, with the way it leans towards them, with the home games and with some of the lesser teams that they play, that artificially the Indians, I'm telling you, the Indians will be within the few games of the wild card, I think, until the end of the season, unless they absolutely collapse. I just think just by playing the level that they're at, they'll stay in that area. Artificially, things are in place, and that's why I say that's why I can't. If I'm a guy, if I'm on the Indians, that's the one reason that I can't write off my team, even if their performance alone in a regular season maybe wouldn't justify them being within 3 games of the wild card or whatever. The fact that they are, and the fact that nobody is running away from them, it's almost like don't look a gift horse in the mouth. You're still right there, even if it's against everything you've tried to do.
Yeah, that's true, and obviously, I hope that you're right, and I hope that they stay in it. If you do look at the schedule, and we've talked about the quality of the opposition between now and the end of the season, and that's obviously a mixed bag. I think, if I'm not wrong, they play, 13 home games and 14 road games in August, but you've got these 3 before the end of the month. So between now and the end of August, you've got 16 home, 14 road. Then in September, you've got 17 home and only 10 on the road.
Right.
They obviously have proven that they play better at home this year, and if that trend continues, then that's a pretty significant thing. That's from here to the end. It's 9 more home games than you've got road games, and that's a significant bump. Couple that with the somewhat weaker nature of the opposition, from here on out, and you've got a recipe for a possible wild card bid as long as they can step up the productivity on the field. And it's just that, you go through 105 games and you see, now it's, this is what we are. We're kind of a lousy defensive team. And, we had one stretch over the last week where we scored 2 runs in about 25 innings. You still are, you can come on and put 10 runs on the board, but at the same time you can go those stretches of 2 to 3 games where you're not getting more than a run or 2 a game, and you're just not going to win the American League doing that. So it's hard to take what we've seen and project something entirely different over the last 67 games or whatever it is.
You're right. I've got an interesting chart here. While you and I are talking, I've got a feature here that they did on 538.com about Billy Beane and what he's done. But there's a chart here, and it's got every major league team broken down since the year of 2000. And what it did was figured how teams have performed relative to the actual payrolls that they've had. So it's kind of turned apples to apples and looked at all of the franchises based on their wins, their expected wins, and how much they spent on payroll. I know a lot of people that slam the Dolans are gonna disagree with me on this, but I'm looking at it right here. According to this, the Indians since 2000 are the 10th best or most effective team in Major League Baseball relative to their payroll, based on what they've spent and the wins that they were expected to get and the wins that they got, which, shows me that they definitely have gotten more for their money than they should have, regardless of some people feel that it's enough.
Yeah, that's interesting. Who's at the top of that chart?
Oakland, by far. Oakland by $300 million over the second best team, which is St. Louis. The top 10 is Oakland, St. Louis, Atlanta, the Angels, the Marlins, the Red Sox, the Rays, the Twins, the Giants, and then the Indians. And you got to realize this is since 2000, so that's why some of those other teams that you might go, oh, why? But the Marlins have won a couple of World Series in that run there, or one at least in that run, right? So.
Yeah, and the only real big spender on that list is the Red Sox. The only super big spender.
But they've won some World Series too. So
yeah, they've won 2 of them. Yeah, in that time. So
but
that's
according to
it doesn't. Yeah, not surprising because the Indians have in that stretch been to the playoffs a couple times and a couple of division wins. So yeah, I can't say that's totally surprising. And relatively speaking, the payroll's been in the 60 to 90 range.
Here's what they've done. I'm trying to give you so I can explain this number. It says what they basically did was they broke down since 2000 what every team's number of win cost them. Like they figured out that for Oakland this year it's $7 million per win or something like that on the payroll or something like that. But so they averaged that out for every team and added it up to what their payroll is based on the number of wins that they've gotten. Had they only been paying based on results is basically how this is come up with. Oakland, had they been paying on results, their total payroll since 2000 of that time is nearly $900 million based on wins per dollar that they've gotten. The next best team is St. Louis, and they're all the way down to a hair under $600 million. So, I mean, there's a hugely significant gap between Oakland and the next best team. They've got the Indians at $172.3 million in value per win that they've spent over those times. And as I said, that's top 10 in the league. You look at some of these bottom teams, which show you that it's not just the high dollar teams, because there's some teams down here that don't spend money that still lose more than they should, even with not spending money. The bottom 5, you've got Chicago, the Cubs. They're the worst team in all of baseball since 2000 at value for the dollar, which pretty much makes sense. We've seen some of the money they've spent. The Mets, the Royals are actually the 3rd worst team on this list. Houston and Baltimore, those are the bottom 5 teams and on that list. So that'll show you it's not. It wasn't just the Yankees. It's not that they, because those teams spend, but they also win. But these are some of the 2 of the smaller market teams here that when they did spend, they still didn't win, and when they didn't spend, they didn't win either. So you can see the Indians, as much as the approach frustrates people, at least monetarily for what they've spent, they've gotten good value over the last 15 years.
Yeah, that chart would seem to indicate that, and I've got to believe I don't have a lot of gripes with this front office other than the guy who's in charge of season ticket sales needs
Listen
to
to
find a new
this.
line of work.
You want to talk about Oakland, Dan? Listen to this number. The Oakland A's in the last 15 years, if they had paid the value for their wins that the other teams did, their payroll would have been $2.02 billion over 15 years. They actually paid $1.2 billion less than that to actually get the wins that they did. But had they been the Yankees, they would have spent nearly $2 billion to build the teams that the A's built over the years.
Yeah, that's amazing. And you can really sort of chalk it up to developing starting pitching out of their farm system. I mean, you can pretty much just say that because that's been the one constant that seems to have gone through that whole decade and a half or whatever it is, because Oakland starting pitchers, even when they can't pay them and have to trade them or they leave as free agents, there's been just a string of starting pitchers from Oakland that are pitching all over Major League Baseball, and they continue to crank them out. So that's where your bread is buttered, and that's where you win ball games, and that's been the earmark of these Oakland teams recently.
Check this out. I know we're going back to Oakland because it's right here, but they did a comparison. Remember when Red Sox tried to get Billy Beane? That was the whole thing at the end where he decided to stay. They did a breakdown of what they would have spent to get Billy Beane over there and all of that, and you could take the value that Billy Beane brought to the A's, the salary that he got. They're literally saying that he could have made $300 million over his run of getting $25 million a year or whatever to run the Red Sox there, plus the additional wins that he would have brought. And had he made that offer, the Red Sox would have duplicated their previous level success and spent over $300 million less to do it. That's kind of interesting how they can break that down like that. But just going off of his Moneyball system, he could have done everything the same, won the same number of games, and they would have spent over $300 million less to do it.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's how much those clubs do that hit or miss kind of thing, and throw dollars out there, and
these
then
are dollars we're talking about, Dan. Real dollars,
like they did with the major trade where they had to shed Crawford and Gonzalez and everybody else on that team just to get back to sanity. But anyway, are you looking to see Asdrubal move out of town this week, or what's your take on that? I mean, I know you'd be willing to see him go, especially after the sort of splashy start that Lindor got down in Columbus.
Yeah, I mean, he's hitting the ball well so far there, that one. And I'm in the camp of people. I've had enough people. I've seen for myself, but I've had enough people that's seen him more tell me that he's ready can be to go. And so that's good enough for me. I'm on the Lindor train. Let's see this kid play some ball. I like Asdrubal. I still think that if he's hitting well, Asdrubal can help this team down the stretch. But I would rather – I was joking with somebody the other day. I said, this is going to sound crazy, but I would trade Asdrubal for a pitcher and Masterson for a hitter if at all I could. I know you're thinking, well, you're trading out one for the other in both cases, but I'm kind of being funny. But at the same time, I think that Asdrubal – can bring the, and I saw, what was it? One of the sites that I check out just to see what other teams are doing said that Asdrubal's really starting to gain some steam around the league just because there's not a lot of middle infielders out there that are being pitched around. So the teams that are looking back at Asdrubal. And the same thing, hey, look, if somebody can get what did they get? A couple of decent prospects for the 1-9 Jake Peavy, who showed that he could switch leagues and still be effective, by the way. I've always liked Jake Peavy. But if somebody can do that, then you've got to think that there's some people that will overpay. I'm not saying you're going to get a ton for him, but they'll send you something for Justin Masterson. I'm telling you. And this is a guy who was on Justin Masterson's bandwagon as long as humanly possible, but I'm completely discouraged by what we saw when he went down there. I said, to me, that's different than when you send Salazar down and he throws a fit for the first couple of times and then he gets himself together and works himself back up. That's youth and frustration. Masterson, you're going down there and you're told by your team to go down there and blow these AAA guys away so we can get you back up here and get you rolling. And you can't even do it then. I just don't know what, if anything, he's going to bring to the team.
Yeah, and wondering about that, and at the same time saying that the course of action to take is to give up on his career as a Cleveland Indian. I don't know if they're ready to take that step. I know lots of fans might be ready to take that step.
But you can get him back, Dan. If Lester said, hey, Red Sox, go ahead and trade me and I'll still come back here in free agency, wouldn't you think if the Indians could get a couple of prospects for him, you trade him off, and if he wants to come back, hey, let's talk in the winter. We've already got a rapport going.
Yeah, that's true, and we'll start the negotiating somewhere south of that $45 million for 3 years.
Somewhere south of that number.
Considerably south of that. Yeah, so that's true. You are just whoever's whoever's getting him would be renting him for the rest of the season, and then the market will dictate what his value is
Look at
next year.
Speaking of rentals, Dan.